Welcome to Let's Accelerate. My name is Michael Nichols. I'm here with Uwe Kirchner. We are from Bosch Management Consulting. We focus on innovation, particularly business model innovation. Today we have a wonderful guest. It's a great opportunity for us to talk to Peter Schardt, the CTO of Siemens Healthineers. And one of my first questions for you, Peter, is what does it mean today to be the CTO of Siemens Healthineers in such an exciting industry?
Well, first of all, Michael, Uwe, thanks for having me, right? Great pleasure. And yeah, exactly the question in these very particular and extraordinary times, right? In the medical industry, they are very special. You're absolutely right, yeah. So what we currently see, and I think this is not unique to our industry, but the pandemic accelerates many developments which we were always thinking about and working on, right? But the demand is now, let's say, accelerating pretty much everything what we do. Yeah, when it is about digitalization, when it's about knowledge sharing, when it's about learning together, right? In particular, how to cope with completely new situations and new diseases like COVID-19, right? So we are learning together with the community of physicians and scientists, right? How to tackle this, right? And I believe this is fascinating, yeah, what the speed is which we can observe now in getting to solutions, to products and any support, yeah, to fight that pandemic, right? So I believe this is a very special time. And I'm very thankful that I'm also, as a CTO in a company like Siemens Healthineers, can contribute, with all what I do, what we do with our company to help fighting this pandemic together with many others on the globe.
Peter, think of something personal, something you would like to share with the audience, something maybe which is not yet well known to your colleagues and customers.
All right, something personal. Okay, then let me first build a bridge to you guys from the Bosch community, right? I also know that you became quite successful, yeah, in, let's say, being highly engaged in the automotive industry. So I'm personally also highly interested in innovation in cars, in cars, right? And yeah, personally, I own two pretty old cars. Yeah, the one is a Citroën 2CV. Yeah, the English call it Déjà Vu, or in Germany we say the Ente. Yeah, and the other one actually is a Ford Mustang. Yeah, from 1966. Yeah. And I believe that these two cars, although they are very old, yeah, and they are not called old cars, they are classic cars, right? But they have been highly innovative at the time when they have been designed and have been brought to market, right? And of course, it was all about mechanical engineering at the time, right? But I think what we can learn from this, they were so highly focused on the customer need and on the demand, yeah, that they were really hitting a mark, right? And what I also find very intriguing, that many details about these cars were designed for affordability, right? I'm not saying low cost, I'm saying really affordability, so that, let's say, a broad population was really able to afford these kind of cars, right? And the success, I think, gave both companies, let's say, proof to that. Yeah? They were really outselling expectations. And if I share one more story, I learned that people were also camping in front of the Ford car dealerships in the US in 1964 just to get rid of, to get a hold of an order to get such a car. A phenomenon which we know from, let's say, the iPhone era, right? That people really are desiring to have something. But hey, when it is about innovation and when I can afford exactly that, right? And that's what we really can learn from also now for our products and solution in the medical industry.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to your industry, in which you have been very successful. Is the medical industry now being disrupted?
This, for me, the answer results in a very clear yes. Yeah, and I think let me build that again, let's say, from the automotive industry. We also see how that is really disrupting pretty much everything. We talk about CO2 free driving, autonomous driving, and so on. And technologies are also applicable to what we do in healthcare, right? So my primary thoughts around disruption in healthcare is threefold. First, and we have seen that disruption already, it's the internet. It's the global availability of knowledge, right? If you think decades back, knowledge was in the heads of physicians. It was shared by textbooks, by scientific conferences, and so on. But now it's in the internet, and Dr. Google is a synonym, right, for the educated patient, right? And medical knowledge really spreads pretty fast because of that. And you also see that in the pandemic right now. Yeah, we all talk about vaccination. We talk about let's say clinical studies, and try to figure out what does that mean, and also what does that mean to me. Yeah? So we already have seen this to now. And the next step is artificial intelligence, right? Now that the knowledge is broadly available in digital form, right? Artificial intelligence is now on top of these data, extracting relevant information out of the data, right? So we all see now user apps like Ada Health or whatever, right? You can now consult basically an AI algorithm, yeah, by means of an app, right? And get a second opinion, for example, from what your personal condition is. Yeah, maybe you use that as a second opinion, but maybe even you use that and saying, "Oh, I do not need to see my physician, yeah, for consulting and what I have, yeah, because based on the results." So I see that now really coming much broader. Yeah, that, let's say, a lot of diagnosing and also decision making is being facilitated more and more by artificial intelligence. So that is a big step, which we are right into this, whether that is on the professional side or even at the consumer side right now. But then I see, and we are not there yet, but we see the first indications of that. Robotics in healthcare will become way more important in the future, right? And that is because robots will become even more intelligent because they might be powered by the insights of the AI algorithms, right? So it doesn't stop at the diagnosis. Yeah? It really moves on into, let's say, the therapy domain as we move on, right? And if I would like to summarize this in a picture which we at Siemens Healthineers promote as a vision, yeah, that is the digital twin. Yeah, the digital twin for me is a digital representation, yeah, of a patient, of a human being, of the state, maybe of the disease state or the organ or whatever, right? Which is fed and based on the data from whatever source. That might be imaging, it might be blood samples, it might be wearables, it might be vital sign data, what have you, right? So the digital twin is fed by that. But what it can then do, it can on a machine level connect then also in the future to interventional devices like robots. Yeah? So just to give an example, we have now a robotic device for endovascular interventions, yeah, for example, cardiac diseases or also in the future neurosurgical diseases, yeah, where, let's say, the catheter can be operated by robotic intelligence, right? And similar as in the self-driving car concept, yeah, you can think of assisting systems, yeah, physician assistants, so to say, right, to perform such interventions much safer, much faster, and then also more effective in terms of the outcome for the patient, right? So it's I see the disruption becoming more and more it's less trial and error. Yeah, it's more simulation, prediction, and then performing procedures right on let's say, with a very focused outcome.
Peter, as a very brief follow-up, you mentioned earlier that the pandemic has accelerated perhaps disruption, perhaps the pace of change in your industry. Now, some people would say, well, we're going to go back to a new normal, or we'll go back to the old normal. Do you see it as more a new normal? Because we've seen some things come up during the pandemic, such as people have seen that giving up a little bit more of their data can actually provide more value for them. Do you see these changes sticking? So to speak, the floodgates are now open and you can't reclose them. Do you see this change being a more permanent one that will further accelerate your industry, or how do you look at that?
Well, to state that the floodgates are open, I'm not quite sure yet, right? But definitely we see a huge change, right? And the one is really, we observe a speed. I talked about accelerating things by means of the pandemic a lot, right? So a good example is the COVID-19 disease, right? So we were all new to this, right? However, we learned at Siemens Healthineers, together with the physicians, with our collaboration partners across the globe, right, how to diagnose that disease. Yeah, we were able within 6 weeks, yeah, to build an artificial intelligence-based algorithm, yeah, to not only diagnose but also to quantify the progression of the disease and give back the physicians also then additional knowledge, right, and to how to treat patients. Yeah, today we have an algorithm where you immediately can, based on blood sample results, you can stratify whether that patient rather immediately goes into the ICU, yeah, and gets special treatment, or whether this patient might develop, let's say, a mild disease, so that can go into a regular station. So a lot of supporting systems developed in record time, yeah, helping us to learning together how to tackle that huge challenge which we are all still living through.
Mm-hmm.
At Bosch, we talk a lot about how can an organization be successful over a long time. And one view to look at that is that an existing organization should manage both the existing core and at the same time manage to explore new ventures outside the existing core, which maybe become then the future core business of the organization. So what are you doing at Siemens Healthineers to manage both your existing core and then you explore?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because when I get asked what are you doing differently, I think the first statement is to say, hey, we continue to do what we are good at, right? So we will continue to develop the next best image quality on computed tomography. We will continue to build the next, let's say, affordable MRI system, yeah, at lower installation cost, whatever, right? So we will continue to make our product better, which is in our core, and we know exactly what to do. Yeah? But you are absolutely right. We also have to do at the same time something radically different, right? And for Healthineers, that means we have to focus way more on particular disease states, yeah, which a patient experience through the whole journey, right? So it's not about a CT, let's say, taking some images. It's only one step or one task in a longer journey, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't suffice that I know what I have. I want to be, let's say, I want to leave the hospital healthy, right? And that means, let's say, a little bit of an upside down view on how we wanna address it. And what that means is that maybe not all of the elements, yeah, which are needed to provide a seamless administration of such a process need necessarily to come from us as Siemens Healthineers, but we have to understand what are the elements needed, and then we want to also then partner with others. We identify the gaps and then really build strong collaborations and partnerships in order to address this, right? So it's a little bit of a 90 degrees a different business model than what might also result out of this, right? Because you can imagine that is not so much built on selling equipment. Yeah, it is more on how do we contribute to help a patient, yeah, being treated and leaving the hospital, let's say, healthy, right? So I believe that there is also an opportunity for think about, let's say, pay per procedure, pay per intervention, and these kind of business models, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about how can we provide help to humans.
And how do you explore these new ideas, these new business model opportunities outside your existing course? You talked about technology, you talked about a patient journey, I maybe would call it, for example, in the hospital. But how do you invent and hopefully also innovate these new explorative ideas? So what are you doing at Siemens Healthineers to be successful here?
So I address it with a term which I call the global network of innovation, which actually means being locally very close to our customer organizations and the patients, let's say, around the globe, right? So we establish new ways of working in terms of using AI algorithms, yeah, let's say, mirroring the patient pathways, yeah, on a local level, yeah, together with our customer organizations. So what we are aiming to do is being very close on site and understanding together with the customers where are the pain points, yeah, where are also the pain points in that particular area and regions, yeah, because that might be very different across the globe. So it's very important to have a customer proximity here, right? And we see that the gaps in India might be very different to those we see in Germany, and they are again very different to what we see at the West Coast in the US, right? So it's very important to be physically on site and develop together with the customers solutions for addressing exactly these pain points. And today we see it mostly that there is a breakdown of communication, a breakdown of data availability, yeah, a breakdown that's of information across that flow, yeah. And I think again here digitalization and the pandemic helps accelerating, modernizing exactly these processes to speed up, but even more important to make sure that the right information is with the right person at the right point in time, yeah, to make the right decision.
Peter, one follow-up to that, we often see that innovation is many times an organizational problem, right? It's you can find new pain points, you can find new business models, but they take time to develop. So your EBIT or revenue expectations may be many years out. So what we mean by this organizational problem is what is the incentive for existing business unit leaders to do these new business models when the results can be far away? So how do you encourage leaders to take that risk to explore these things as the CTO?
Thank you. That is also a very good question, and the answer is close to my heart, right? So because I believe also in large corporate organizations like Siemens Healthineers or like Bosch as well, I think we are really doing good in terms of optimizing revenue and also cost later on, and by means of that also EBIT and profit and so on. I think that's what we are used to, right? But I think what we still have to develop further is how can we scale new ideas or new solutions much faster, right? And that is not in the first place okay, how much money do I earn with it? But it's in the first place to understand how does it resonate with the customers? How is the usage, right? How do we, let's say, scale up, let's say, a solution which really provides relief, right? And I think the digital industry tells us how they do it, right? First features are distributed, let's say, without asking for any money, right? But it's important to really demonstrate that it really can scale, right? And then you will find quickly business models, right? How to sell higher value and maybe give for free a lower value as a kind of incentive, yeah, to embark on a platform solution, right? So I think really having the customer usage of solutions as a primary KPI in focus, I think that is what we are also looking at now.
Very good. A related issue is, so you mentioned many times that you're focusing on customer need and you start your business model innovation from customer needs, sitting with the customers. But there's also on the other side, when you look at very high technology companies like us, the R&D function. And the R&D function gets a lot of budget. They're working on technologies that may be in the future. I think you even mentioned robotics earlier. You said this is coming. But oftentimes those R&D inventions is what we like to call them, they get stuck at the go-to-market piece. And companies struggle to convert from invention to innovation, this go-to-market piece. How do you encourage that at your company to increase that conversion rate so that we match technology with customer need at the right time?
Absolutely. But this is where we, also in a global setup, want to very close with the customer in the very early phases of the invention, right? So the ideation phase is already together with the customer, right? And we're also discussing with the customer, if we would be able to now demonstrate value A, B, C, whatever, would you then make it your standard practice? Would you then, let's say, allow that to be the standard of care in your organization, right? So having that discussion very early on, that focuses the mindset of the things you do or not do, right? Because I think, we in the past we have also been happy with a nice publication, scientific report, whatever, right? But I think what counts is it being used at the end, right? And you have to really filter and funnel, let's say, those ideas which at the end of the day are really resonating. And then I believe what you called out as a deficit, that will be overcome. And co-creation, collaboration is for me the key to this. It's not our R&D organization alone, which consumes a lot of money, for sure, and appropriately so. However, being very early on together with partners, maybe startup companies, it might be academia, but most importantly, it might be our customers, and really co-create from the very beginning on what are the solutions which are finally then really being pulled. It's we also talk about the technology push and the market pull, right? Highlighting more the pull from the market, also from a local demand, is very important.
And what are you doing, for example, then with your R&D colleagues that they exactly do this and understand? Or certainly you can be successful by having superior technology with a technology push, but only if, as we know also from history, if this technology then also still solves a relevant customer problem, and still as an organization you are able to build a solid business model around that. What are the incentives for your R&D colleagues to make sure that they really develop something which then can be successfully marketed later on?
Well, our R&D folks, they know we are constrained. We are constrained by budget. We are constrained by whatever means we have, right? And innovation is also, let's say, a term for making something happen, right, within limited constraints. Yeah. Okay. So that leads to the insight. You cannot do everything by your own, right? And somebody who tells me, "Oh, I could do this if I only would get the funds and the money," right? I would give it. Well, I think we should shift a little bit more the mindset in. How can you team up with somebody else who can complement what you can do in order to build a better solution together out of this, right? And that means maybe in the latest consequence, maybe we do not need to own everything by ourselves, right? But it's more important what is the additional benefit we can achieve by teaming up with somebody else who might also then invest together with us in a solution, right? Because that might be then that additional benefit is really that what the customer also then needs, right? So when I talk about the patient pathway, there are many elements, and they are not only CT machines or whatever, right? There are many other elements which are really needed, and I believe teaming up with others to make that a very seamless, homogeneous solution, we have to think more openly.
Mm-hmm. Good. You mentioned earlier the role of regions, right? I come from the US, and the way Americans see medicine is different than the way Germans see it. The way Indians see medicine is different from the way the Chinese see it. And I'm now in Singapore. The way they see medicine is totally different. And the regulations correspondingly differ. So what role, I think you already touched on this, but what role should the regions play when it comes to business model innovation, bringing the next big thing?
Yeah, oh yeah, thank you. That is also very important, because I also have set up within our company actually 4 dedicated innovation centers, one in the US in Princeton, one really here in Germany, but then also in Bangalore, in India, and in Shanghai, in China, because the world is so different, and let's say the application of AI really shows that difference very clearly, right? How to deal with patient data is very different in all of these regions, right? So in the past, an X-ray system was an X-ray system. It was a global product, no matter where you sell it or where you use it, right? But when it comes to an algorithm which gives decision support, or based on a population, this is a complete different world. If you think about China, access to the data and training the algorithms, right? Then you would do it in the European Union space or even in the US, right? It's very different, and you have to find different strategies. But it also means you have to do the R&D, in that case, the training of algorithms locally, because even data might not cross borders easily, right, as it may have been in the past. But regulations, restrictions, the value of data and the data privacy becomes really a very high value as we speak, right? And you have to define your strategy, how to be local while having a global competence, on addressing that. That's what we do.
We have talked about a lot about innovation, about technology, and also elements in order to be successful in a corporate environment. What we haven't talked about is really more about the vision of Siemens Healthineers, the vision and maybe even the purpose. So why does your organization even exist? As you know, this is one of the typical questions you would ask, and you ask for the purpose. So why should the customers even care?
No, that is, thank you. That is easy, but it's equally important, right? So I think we have a very strong purpose. We, Siemens Healthineers, want to innovate to help humans live healthier and longer, right? And if I could make let's say, a proof to that exactly, for example, when it comes to cancer and oncology, we prove that by teaming up with Varian, right, they have a vision. We want to get rid of fear of cancer, which is, I think, a very strong purpose. But I think in the bigger company, it is about addressing the most burdensome disease states, like cardiovascular diseases, neuro diseases, infectious diseases, whatever, right? So there are many elements where we really want to address and relieve the burden to humans and mankind. Yeah?
Looking at the time, we're already coming towards the end of our podcast today, and usually we finish off our podcast with a sentence completion exercise. So Peter, if you agree, let's give it a try.
For sure, let's go.
In 2030, Siemens Healthineers will
be an organization focused on patients and operate new business models focusing on disease states.
The next big thing in my industry will be intelligent robotics for interventions powered by digital twins, yeah, connecting data sources to interventions on the machine level. The first thing I will personally do after pandemic will be?
I definitely will invite family and friends and have a big party with a barbecue and really have a big get together and celebrate that we will be able to overcome this.
And drive around in your Ford Mustang. That's what I was expecting.
You bet.
Yeah, good.
Peter Schardt, it has been a pleasure having you on our podcast, Let's Accelerate. So thank you for your time today.
Uwe, Michael, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.